All right, strap in, everybody. Today we are going deep on memes.
Memes.
Oh, but not the kind you're thinking of, probably. Like those funny cat pictures all over the internet.
Okay, so not those memes. What kind of memes, then?
We're talking about the evolution of ideas, the big ones, beliefs, cultural trends, stuff that spreads from one person's mind to another.
Those memes. Got it.
Exactly. And the big question we're going to tackle, what makes some ideas really stick? Like, what gives them staying power? Does truth matter at all? Or logic? Or is it something else?
Fascinating stuff.
Yeah, it really is. And to help us sort through this whole meme jungle, we've got an awesome guide.
Oh, yeah. Who's
A
that?
paper by Dr. Ray Scott Percival.
Okay.
It's called Dawkins and Incurable Mind Viruses.
Hey.
Memes, Rationality, and Evolution.
Catchy title.
Right. And Percival, he's taking on Richard Dawkins, Mr. Meme Theory himself.
Bold move.
It is. So Dawkins, his argument is that some ideas are like those nasty computer viruses. They're irrational, they're stubborn, and they are masters at spreading. He even calls them mind viruses.
Interesting. I can see where he's going with that.
Right. And he uses examples like blind faith or the idea of hellfire.
Yeah, I guess those have been around forever.
Exactly. They just keep popping up,
Makes you wonder why.
doesn't it? It's like, why do some ideas, even if they seem completely bonkers, why do they stick around so long?
Right.
But, and here's where it gets really good. Percival, he's like, wait a minute. He throws down this challenge to Dawkins. He's like, what if Dawkins is totally underestimating the power of being rational?
Okay, I'm listening.
What if being rational, being logical, having evidence to back up your claims, what if those things actually help an idea spread further and faster? What if they're like the secret weapons in this whole meme battle?
That's a pretty big what if.
It is.
And I'm guessing Percival has some thoughts on why that might be.
You bet he does. So Percival, he starts by pointing out something pretty obvious. Humans, yeah, we make mistakes.
We're good at that.
Right. And we can definitely cling to our biases, even when they make no sense. But, and this is crucial, we can also learn from our mistakes.
Learn and change.
Exactly.
Okay, so Percival is saying that we have the potential to be rational.
Yeah, and he even compares it to how a scientist tests a hypothesis. They make observations, they gather their data, maybe they get some things wrong at first.
Happens all the time in science.
Right. But through trial and error, through trying things out, they can refine what they know and get a little closer to the truth.
So it's like a constant process of getting things wrong and figuring out how to get them a little more right.
Exactly. And Percival says this isn't just for scientists in their labs, this is for everyday ideas too. Think about it. You have a belief,
Yeah.
and it keeps leading you down the wrong path.
You bump into the same wall over and over.
Right. Or it just clashes with what you experience in the real world, or it can't solve the problem it's supposed to solve. What happens?
You start to have second thoughts.
Right. You're like, wait a minute, something's not right here.
Like that saying, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Yeah. So if an idea keeps failing the test, we tend to ditch it, or at least we should.
So where does that leave us with rationality?
Well, this is where Percival starts building his case for why rational ideas might actually be more contagious.
Not contagious, really.
He says that ideas rooted in logic and evidence and actually connecting with reality, those have an edge. They're more likely to get picked up by people, remembered, and passed on because they're actually useful.
Have real world value.
Exactly. They help us navigate this crazy world, make smarter choices, solve problems more effectively.
So it's not just about how catchy an idea is or how good it makes you feel. It's got to work.
It has to deliver the goods.
Okay, so I'm following so far, but I can hear Dawkins now saying, hold on, tons of irrational beliefs are thriving. Where's the utility in those?
I know, right? Seems like a big hole in the theory. But Percival, he's got an answer. He says Dawkins missed something really crucial in how ideas spread and survive.
Something Dawkins missed.
He calls it immunizing stratagems.
Immunizing stratagems? That sounds kind of complicated.
It's not really. Think of it like we all have this inner lawyer who's really good at coming up with defenses to protect the ideas we already believe in.
Our inner defense attorney.
Exactly. So we do these mental gymnastics to shield our favorite ideas from attack,
Attack from what?
from criticism, from doubt, from evidence that says we might be wrong.
So we twist the facts to fit our story, ignore inconvenient truths, come up with all these elaborate explanations just to keep our belief system intact.
You got it. It's like building a mental fortress around an idea.
Okay. But I still don't see how that makes an idea less copyable. Seems like it would make it stronger.
I know, it seems counterintuitive. But Percival's argument is that these immunizing stratagems, they might work in the short term, but over time they actually weaken an idea's ability to spread and survive.
I did not see that coming.
It's a clever point. So by constantly tweaking an idea, reinterpreting it, trying to defend it from every little criticism, what happens is you end up changing the idea so much that it's not even the same idea anymore.
It gets watered down.
Yeah, or becomes something completely different. The original message gets lost.
Like a game of telephone where the message gets all jumbled up as it goes from person to person.
That's a great analogy. So instead of making the idea sharper and clearer, all that defending just blurs it.
Makes it harder to grasp, harder to remember, harder to pass on.
Exactly. And a blurry, constantly shifting idea. That's not very contagious.
Interesting.
Right. But here's where it gets even wilder. Percival, he goes on to say that the more rational a system of ideas is, the more copyable it becomes over time.
So rationality is like a superpower for memes.
You could say that. And his favorite example, scientific ideas. Why? Because they're always being tested, refined, updated as new evidence comes in. Science is built on self-correction, on this relentless pursuit of truth. And it's that process of constantly refining and improving that makes scientific knowledge so darn powerful and so easily copied.
Makes sense. It's grounded in reality, not trying to hide from scrutiny. It's actively seeking it out.
Right. Which is so different from those mind viruses that Dawkins talks about. They're all about dodging criticism.
I'm starting to see the contrast here.
But here's the kicker. Even those ideas that seem completely irrational, they still have to use some degree of rationality to spread.
What do you mean?
Well, they might exploit our biases or our fears, sure, but they also have to offer something that seems beneficial, some explanation that makes a little bit of sense, even if it's flawed, some feeling of coherence. And the more an idea lines up with those principles of rationality, the more likely it is to grab people's attention and survive in the long run.
Wow, okay, so we've got Dawkins over here saying, mind viruses rule the world, and Percival saying, hold up, rationality might be the real kingmaker.
It's a fascinating debate.
It really is.
But before we get too lost in the weeds, let's take a step back. Remember those 7 pillars of rationality Percival talked about?
Yeah, he mentioned those.
Those are the things, according to Percival, that make ideas super copyable. They're like the building blocks of any idea that's going to be strong, compelling, and ultimately contagious.
A recipe for meme success. I like it.
You too. And those 7 pillars, that's where we're headed next.
All right, so before we jump into those 7 pillars of rationality, we were talking about this clash between Dawkins' mind viruses and Percival's idea that rational ideas might actually be more contagious.
It is kind of mind-blowing, isn't it? This whole battle of ideas. And I got to say, I'm catching myself seeing those immunizing stratagems everywhere now.
Yeah, they're all over the place once you start looking for them. It's like we're all trying to protect our favorite beliefs like they're these precious little treasures.
Which I guess makes sense. We humans, we get attached to our beliefs. Especially the ones that give us comfort or make us feel like we belong.
Right, it's natural. But like Percival says, sometimes those defenses, those mental walls we build, they can actually backfire.
How so?
Well, he says those ideas that really stick around, the ones that have a big impact, they're often the ones that are open to being challenged and tested.
Instead of shutting out criticism, they're like, bring it on.
Exactly. You know that saying, iron sharpens iron?
Yeah.
Kind of like that.
So it's better to build bridges than walls.
I think so. Imagine a fortress, closed off from the world, versus a bustling city, open to new ideas and people. Which one's going to thrive in the long run?
Definitely the city. Okay, so then those mind viruses that Dawkins talks about, are they really totally immune to reason?
That's a good question. Could even the most stubborn beliefs change if there's enough evidence against them?
Right.
Percival thinks so. And he brings up this really cool study by a guy named Leon Festinger. It's about disconfirmed prophecies.
Disconfirmed prophecies. That sounds rough. Like a recipe for some serious mental gymnastics.
Yeah, it is. So Festinger, he studied these groups who were absolutely convinced the world was ending on a specific date.
Wow.
They sold all their stuff, cut ties with anyone who didn't believe. They were all in, ready for the apocalypse.
I bet. And then what?
The day comes and nothing happens.
Oh, man. That's got to be tough to process.
You'd think they'd give up on the whole belief, right? But that's not what happened at first. They dug in even deeper.
Really?
Yeah, they started rationalizing it, saying things like, their faith is what saved the world.
Talk about an immunizing stratagem.
Yeah.
But did they keep believing that forever?
Nope. The really interesting part is what happened as time went on. The evidence against their belief kept piling up, and what happened? the groups started to fall apart. Some people held on, but a lot of them, they started to doubt, and eventually they abandoned the whole belief system.
So even those really hardcore convictions can crumble when there's enough evidence against them.
Exactly. And what that tells us is that even those mind viruses, they're not totally immune to reason. They might play on our fears and biases, sure, but they also have to offer something that seems useful or at least makes some kind of sense. And when the costs outweigh the benefits, when the explanations don't hold up anymore, that's when even the strongest beliefs can start to unravel.
This is making me think about belief in a whole new way. It's not just rational versus irrational. It's way more complicated than that.
Totally. It's about our emotions, our experiences, our ability to reason, all mixed together.
And that makes studying memes super fascinating.
Absolutely. It's like trying to solve this giant puzzle, figuring out what makes an idea stick, why some beliefs are more powerful than others, what determines their fate in the big picture.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, well, speaking of figuring things out, you mentioned those 7 pillars of rationality that Percival says make ideas so copyable.
Right.
I'm ready to hear about those. What are they?
All right, let's start building. The first pillar is what Percival calls logical rationality. Think about how it feels when someone contradicts themselves, or you hear an argument that just doesn't make logical sense.
Oh, yeah, that drives me nuts, like nails on a chalkboard.
Right, you just instinctively try to find the flaw in the logic.
Totally.
That's logical rationality at work. We crave consistency. Our brains want things to make sense and fit together.
So ideas that are logically sound, that don't require mental gymnastics to understand, those are just more appealing.
Exactly, it's like a mental shortcut. If an idea doesn't make us twist our brains into knots, we're more likely to accept it.
Okay, that makes sense. What's the next pillar?
So building on that, the second pillar is exploratory rationality.
Exploratory rationality.
Think about that natural curiosity we have. Like, why are kids always asking why about everything?
They're little information sponges.
Exactly. That's exploratory rationality in action. We're wired to seek out new information, explore the unknown, push the boundaries of what we know.
So it's like our brains are always on the lookout for fresh data, new insights, new ways of understanding the world.
Exactly. And that has a huge impact on how ideas spread. Ideas that make us curious, that spark our imaginations, they're just more contagious.
They tap into our natural desire to learn and discover.
Right.
Okay, I'm starting to see how these pillars fit together.
And the third pillar, building on that curiosity, is explanatory rationality.
Explanatory rationality.
We don't just want information, we want to make sense of it. We like explanations, patterns, connecting the dots.
So it's like we're all little detectives trying to solve the mysteries of the universe.
Exactly. We want to understand why things are the way they are. And that's where good storytelling and explanations come in. Ideas that offer a clear and satisfying explanation, those are just naturally more attractive to us.
And that would definitely make them more likely to spread, like finding that missing puzzle piece. But we're not just sitting around theorizing all day, right?
Right. We need ideas that actually work in the real world.
And that brings us to pillar number 4.
You got it. Problem rationality.
Okay, problem rationality.
Humans, we're natural problem solvers. We run into obstacles, we analyze them, we come up with solutions.
So we judge ideas by how well they actually solve problems.
Exactly. If it doesn't work, we ditch it.
Pretty pragmatic.
Very much so. And that leads us to the fifth pillar, instrumental rationality.
Instrumental rationality. Okay, what's that all about?
This one's all about outcomes. It's not enough for an idea to just be logically sound or interesting. It has to be useful.
It has to lead to something tangible.
Right. Think about getting advice that just keeps backfiring. What are you going to do?
Stop taking that advice.
Exactly. We care about results. We want a return on our investment, even when it comes to ideas.
Okay, I'm liking this. What's next?
Pillar number 6, economic rationality.
Economic rationality, huh?
This one acknowledges that we're not just judging ideas based on logic or outcomes, but also costs and benefits. We weigh the pros and cons.
So even our belief systems have to pass a cost-benefit analysis.
You could say that. If a belief demands huge sacrifices, creates anxiety, forces you to reject everything you hold dear, it's going to be a tough sell, even if it offers some benefits.
Makes sense. Beliefs that are too costly to maintain, they're less likely to survive.
Right. And finally, we arrive at the 7th pillar, and this one might surprise you, emotional rationality.
Emotional rationality. Okay, that sounds like a contradiction. How can emotions be rational?
Well, think about it. Our emotions aren't random. They're tied to our values, our experiences, how we see the world.
So even our feelings are based on some kind of assessment of the world, even if it's sometimes wrong or biased.
Exactly. And Percival says that's a key part of emotional rationality. Ideas that resonate with our deepest values, that tap into our emotional needs, those are just more likely to spread.
This is really making me rethink things.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see how all these pillars work together to make an idea really stick.
It's not just logic or emotion, it's this complex web of all these different factors.
Right. And understanding that interplay, that's what makes Percival's work so interesting.
It really does. He's pushing us to move beyond this simple idea of mind viruses versus rational thought, and to see how ideas actually evolve in the human mind.
Okay, so this has been an incredible journey so far, but we got to talk about one more thing. Dawkins and Percival, they have very different views on blind faith.
Yeah, that's a big one. How does Percival approach that?
That's a great question. And it's going to lead us into the final part of our exploration. Okay, so we're back, and we left off with this big question about blind faith.
Right, because Dawkins, he thinks blind faith is like essential for certain memes to survive.
Especially in religion, right?
Yeah, but Percival, he's not so sure.
Really? But what about all those people who just, refuse to budge even when they're wrong?
I know what you mean.
It happens all the time.
Percival gets that. He knows humans, we make mistakes, we're not perfect, we're prone to biases. But he asks us to imagine something. What if blind faith was really a thing? What if people could just believe anything, no matter what?
Okay, I'm imagining.
Wouldn't we expect one belief system to have taken over by now? Wouldn't the most powerful mind virus, the one that's best at spreading, wouldn't it have wiped out all the competition?
That's a good point. Why are there so many different religions then? Or why are there so many different versions of the same religion? Why do people switch religions?
Exactly. If beliefs were totally immune to reason, we wouldn't see all that diversity.
So what's Percival's explanation then?
He says blind faith, as Dawkins describes it, it's probably not the whole story. Even the most irrational seeming beliefs, they're still anchored in some kind of rationality.
So those beliefs, they're still trying to make sense of the world, even if their logic is flawed or they're based on bad information.
Right. And they also have to offer something that seems beneficial to the believer, something that resonates with their values or gives them comfort.
So it's not just about shutting off your brain and believing anything. There's still some thought process going on.
Definitely. And that's where Percival's idea about the copyability of ideas comes in.
Oh yeah, how does that fit in?
Well, remember those immunizing stratagems.
The mental gymnastics we do to protect our beliefs.
Right. Percival says beliefs that rely too much on those stratagems, they might actually be less likely to spread in the long run.
Wait, really? How does that work?
Think about it. If you're constantly twisting and reinterpreting an idea to avoid criticism, you're changing it. And eventually, it becomes something different.
The original idea gets lost in all that defending.
Right. It's like making a copy of a copy of a copy. The quality degrades, the image gets blurry.
And a blurry idea is harder to understand, harder to remember, harder to pass on.
Exactly. So all those mental defenses, they might seem helpful in the short term, but they can actually make an idea less contagious.
Wow, that's a really interesting point.
And Percival says that the most successful ideas, the ones that last, they're the ones that are open to scrutiny and refinement.
So it's better to invite criticism than to try to shut it out.
He thinks so. Look at science, for example. The scientific method is all about testing, questioning, revising, and that's why scientific knowledge has been able to advance so quickly.
It's like that saying, the truth will set you free.
But sometimes facing the truth can be uncomfortable. It can challenge our beliefs, make us confront our biases.
Definitely.
But Percival says that discomfort, it's a necessary part of intellectual growth. It's how we get closer to a more accurate, more nuanced understanding of the world.
That's a really great way to put it. Well, this has been a mind-blowing deep dive for sure. We've covered so much, from the nature of memes to the power of rationality and how even our attempts to protect ideas can backfire.
It's been quite a journey. But maybe the most important thing we can take away from Dr. Percival's work is this. We should never underestimate the human capacity for learning, for self-correction, for progress.
Yeah, that's a really good point. We might be flawed and biased and ignorant sometimes, but we can also learn from our mistakes.
Yeah.
We can change our minds. We can get better.
And by embracing critical thinking, by welcoming challenge and debate, by being willing to change our minds when we're wrong.
By welcoming a comprehensive, critical ethos, we promote the progress of humankind. Boy, that was a great podcast.
不要让人们可能愚蠢的事实欺骗我们，让我们认为他们是非理性的。